brothers be like, yo, he changed his style up. Shut the F up. You still lick it right up. It's 9-6, so get with it. Keep that back in the day when the other squad was hitting. Listen, must we forget I invented all that wild, that jump up and ready to up now. Brick City. Late, okay, at OneYoungsta, holding it down, bring that street geek and nerd soul. What is up, my people? Today, coming with another wonderful episode of That Is Right. On screen, we are chilling. We are having a fun time chilling on some late night live, and I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good too. It's great to have you here. See your sun shining faces. Real quick before we get started, this is going to be on Altered Carbon Season 2 and Altered Carbon Resleeved, which is the animated film that they put out after it, just maybe like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. So if you haven't seen it, you know what I'm saying, you enter it at your own peril. So while we're, got that out the way, big shout out to Thought Crimes, big shout out to For All Nerds, big shout out to Blurtish, Black Tribbles, Double Toasted, big shout out to the Blurred Girl, everybody out there doing their thing. Also big shout out to Panda out there, my largest Patreon supporter. Much love to you. Thank you for holding down and supporting NERDSoul. So, you know what it's about. You've seen the title. How are you feeling about this season of Altered Carbon as opposed to season 1 of Altered Carbon? And with that said, I'll go on and answer my question while, you throw yours in the chat or throw yours in the comments below. I think this is a really good jumping off, or a good connection / jumping off point for the next story from what we got in our first season. We're connecting to what we knew. We're getting small, I guess you could say, references to what we, dealt with before. And we're also following through on some storylines that had been hinted at. We're also laying some groundwork for what can come in the future, all while dealing with some very interesting characters and a very different take on the governmental structure of these planets, like Harlan's world, for instance, and also revenge and what it looks like in its many different forms. Also love, sort of, what it looks like in its many different forms. So I'm not mad at this season. I enjoyed it, and it was good seeing Angela. It was good seeing Angela from Power die again. Oh boy, let's go on and get into Angie. And of course, in this season, she's not called Angie. She's Danica Harlan, and she is the daughter of, I don't know, regular Harlan. I don't remember his name. The dude from that rock movie where he had the 2x4, and also the dude that was Damien Dark in Arrow, and also ended up being some in Flash and some in Legends. But anyway, seeing her in this role, I was really interested to see how they would play her, because we had seen the Angie from Power, and we kind of know how she was played there and how she was presented. And here, I do like the turn of her being very power hungry to her own detriment, and also slightly creative. There were some by the numbers things that she did that was like, oh, you stupid, you gonna get caught out there on that one. But for what it was, using the Kemp strategy to kind of create her own war wasn't the worst idea. And also playing that against the Praetorians or whatever wasn't the worst idea. Killing her dad and kind of assuming power and using this fake war to kind of keep her in power it's not the worst idea. It doesn't, there's not a long game unless you have a way to come out of it. But I do think the way she handled it with like the fireworks and stuff, that was a cool way to tie up loose ends. You know what I'm saying? Like she was your average, dirty politician at first, but ended up being kind of interesting to watch when you saw like how dirty she was. And big shout out to Loda Scholar. Nice to see you up in the chat. What up, what up? Nice to see you. Thanks for rolling through. So yeah, it was interesting to see how they played her. And I'm glad they played her the way they did. I'm glad they played her the way they did. It was good to see, her come through in a different light. You know what I'm saying? And in a way that wasn't cheesy and didn't play her as a victim. You know what I'm saying? They never really played her like that. They let her be a villain and let her be smart in a few cases, and then also let her screw up in a few cases too. Like, she released the tapes, and then, of course, it kind of backfired on her. The whole circle kind of like a gladiator thing kind of backfired on her. But for the most part, she was a solid villain, a solid kind of like number 2 villain, I guess. She was the main villain, sort of, but they ended up working together at the end. But I did like her performance, and I did like her character in general. So big shout out to Lela. What's her real name? Lela Loren. Big shout out to her. Good to see her doing her thing. One person I want to talk about real quick before, and I'll get to his performance later, but I wanted to say now, Will Yoon Lee has been dope for a long time. And I'm glad in this series he's getting to show his skills, because I was up on him back in like the 90s, B, and I feel like people slept on him. Like in the late 90s, I think is the first time I saw him, like maybe like 98, 99. And I feel like people had always slept on him. And I like seeing him get his love in this show, in season 1 and season 2. So yeah, big shout out to the basic script call him Takeshi or Kovacs Prime. So, it's good to see that. I do enjoy that. So big shout out to that. And also big shout out to the next character that I'm going to talk about is Poe. Poe follows along from the kind of like his digital matrix, I guess, breaking up or starting to degrade, or the hard drive is failing and stuff like that. And you kind of see someone who's sort of going through the effects of maybe what would be considered, I don't know, dementia or Alzheimer's maybe. And they did a good job of showing the breakdown in the relationship between Takeshi and Poe. And I think that came off as genuine. Like, yo, we boys, but bottom line is, even though we boys, I need you to hold me down. And if you can't hold me down, I got to get someone else, because my life is on the line. You know what I'm saying? So I did enjoy that, and I did like that a whole lot. The way they played him, and even when they played him against what was the young lady's name? I can't remember. The archaeologist Dig played him against Dig. Dig 301. When they played him against her, it was interesting to see how much she cared, and then even to see her experience her victimization when they were like kind of like forcing her to like overwrite her memory. I thought that was great too. So the way that this plays with the kind of like mixture between pretty much digital people and essentially just cybernetic memory stacks inside of meat suits, and whoever knows what else with all these, like with old girl with the coils, we'll get into her in a second. But this does a good job of meshing all of these and make it in the world of Altered Carbon, make it seem like they match, like they exist together, and they make sense. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was really cool, and I thought that was really, really respectful how they held that down. So I want to put a pause on the cause for a second. Give a shout out to Arcatron. Don't forget to check out that album. That's right, The Space Bridge from Arcatron. Arcatron. You can check that out on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, everywhere except Tidal, pretty much, because Jay-Z be hating. But I mean, I can understand Jay-Z hating because he put out an album with Jay Electronica that didn't really, so he hating right now. But with that said, it's one of these things with a show like this that have a lot of ways that they could go wrong, and introduce some interesting concepts without being cheesy or corny or anything like that, which is something that I enjoy, that I enjoy a lot. And let me see, it looks like the stream look like it's fine. I don't know why YouTube is tripping. Let me see. All right, cool. See, I don't know why YouTube seemed like it was tripping for a second, but anyway, shouts out to Lotus Scholar. LOL. Yeah, I know. So another thing that I enjoy of this show is the main female protagonist in this, which will be Kel, or Kel Chris Falconer, or also, I can't remember her real name. But having her and basically be like the motivating factor of this season was, for me, a kind of I thought it could have been a misfire. I was worried at first because I was like, you know what? Do we really care about the movement as much as we cared in season 1? But once we opened up that door of the elders, once we opened up that door of like the glowing rocks and trying to figure out where that goes and everything, we got a lot more intrigue around her, and the people she was killing and the motivation for those killings. It ended up kind of pulling me right in. And for something that I thought could have been bad, could have ended up, just being throwaway, ended up being kind of apt for what the elders and what Harlan's world was built on, and what the founders were built on. And I like that. I like how we dealt with that kind of old revenge that had been waiting around for the longest time. And then even seeing how that happened with Kel being in that, the stasis pod or whatever, and how it happened to her. They played that really well. And that's another thing that could have went off corny. I think the only thing that kind of went off corny is the turn for, what's old boy's name? The guy, who was Takeshi's, the Colonel. What was his name? Oh man, hold up. I know I have it somewhere. This should be it. What is this? Colonel Ivan Carrera, I think. I'm probably Carrera. I think I'm pronouncing it right. But that's something that could have ended up being whack. And it did get a little cheesy for me in the end. But before it got cheesy with the body jump at the end, to go into Ivan the Colonel, I did like the kind of father-son surrogacy, sort of, to a certain degree, between those two, meaning him and Takeshi. I thought that was interesting. Lotus Scholar says, I know who you're talking about, but I forget. Colonel Ivan Carrera. But I think they did a good job of showing in a twisted way, how he saw Takeshi as sort of a son that he didn't have, you know what I'm saying? And raising him in a very twisted way. And then what he did with his sister, of course, Raylene, kind of like discarding her basically to the triads or whatever. It was just interesting seeing how he looked at him like the son that had the potential. You know what I'm saying? So I like that. What I didn't like is how, kind of like, sort of like the act 3 of the season was just like, oh, well, he's a bad guy now, so just forget about him. And I do think that the wrong Takeshi died. But I understand why. You know what I'm saying? I understand why they got rid of the old Takeshi, because the old Takeshi had so much, hurt, pain, sorrow from his sister and all that stuff. And the younger Takeshi, the not one that experienced season 1, could kind of start from a clean slate. You know what I'm saying? And, now we get a third Takeshi. We're back to OG Takeshi, which is cool. And then he gets to go off with Kel and they have another, adventure, maybe, possibly. So I do like that. I did like how they played the father-son thing. I just didn't like the end part where he just, he's just a bad guy. He's possessed and that's it. You know what I'm saying? They didn't really get to resolve how they felt about one another, because I do think that there's some complex emotions in there. Like, for better, for worse, that was Takeshi's father figure, sort of. Like, even old Takeshi was telling young Takeshi, like, remember how you used to feel so good just to get their recognition, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So I do think there was a lot there, but, unfortunately, Ivan had to take a L. But outside of that, I did want to talk about Raylene's turn on the flashbacks. We get to see what was going on before old Takeshi was awakened for season 1 for all that time, and seeing just how evil she was. And it really drove home that she had been broken and changed, and she just had to be stopped. She was never going to turn back and be, the Raylene the Ray that Takeshi knew. You know what I'm saying? But I do think spending that time seeing those flashbacks showed what drove Kel and what, how she connected to the elders. And it also just showed, like, Ray, the right choice was made with Ray. Good or bad, you know what I'm saying? The right choice was made. And that's sad, but it's just something that's real. You know what I'm saying? That's all you can do is just be like, yo, look, hey, the girl evil. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you gonna do? The girl evil. Oh man. Last I wanna talk about Takeshi. And I mean, I guess last for this season, because oh man, Lotus Scholar says Ray had a notice me Oni-chan complex. Yeah, she did. She did. Regardless of how much power she gained, she definitely had that complex about her, and she couldn't let it go. So I wanted to talk about Trep, because Trep is a character. And another thing that I like about this season is that at one point you have 3 Black people on screen that all sort of have their own motivations, but they're also interwoven in different ways, but they're not all on the same page at all times. Even the one-on-one between Kel and Trep, like, yo, he can't kill me. He loves me too much. It ain't gonna happen. But if you see me going crazy, I need you to kill me. Like those kind of things. And then seeing them all work together was kind of dope, especially in a futuristic kind of Johnny Mnemonic sort of world. I thought that was dope. It was just nice to see, because in these cases, rarely do we see Black people in these spaces, and rarely do we see them at the forefront in these spaces. So I thought it was dope. And then even having Carl Lumbly roll through as her father, thought that was cool. But her slow quest to try to find out what happened to her brother was not important at first, until we started to see that it was tied to a larger conspiracy. And then you were like, wow, okay, hold up. Maybe there's something here. And then you get the thing with Kemp with the necklace. Her brother gets killed by the Takeshi Prime and stuff. And then you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff there. Oh, and her wife gets kidnapped, or was it a son kidnapped? Somebody get kidnapped. But just the way they handled her as a character, they let her kind of unfold for us instead of trying to give us everything in episode 1, which I enjoyed. I thought that was cool. We got to see her family slowly, like one step at a time, and it made sense for her to kind of like act the way she did about certain things. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. Much props to her character. So lastly, I want to jump into Takeshi. And I mean, this season as a whole has dope characters, but Takeshi is the person that we follow, basically, what this story is basically about, outside of Kel. Seeing Takeshi in this stage of his life deal with Poe is disheartening, because you see their relationship kind of falling apart. Even though you know that he cares for this guy, but it's falling apart. He's kind of forced into figuring out what's going on Harlan's world because he's tracked down. Cool, no problem. Then he finds out, oh snap, Kel's still alive. So this guy is lost in a whirlwind as far as the character, and still finds a way to find his footing and keep going on, which I thought was real cool. Even though we found out that if you're not Kel, he don't care. Now, I mean, of course, this is the love of his life. Ever since he laid eyes on her, he was smitten. But if you ain't Kel, boy, whoo, it ain't a good look. I'm just saying, because he made it, I think, well known that he was here for one reason and one reason only, and that was to make sure that he ended up with Kel, and that he kind of saved her above all else and got off planet. And him sacrificing himself at the end, Lotus Scholar said Kel is bae literally. Oh man, it's hilarious. Kel, yeah, that's just his bae. That's his bae forever. You know what I'm saying? And the way he sacrificed himself it hurt, but him knowing, it was interesting because he sacrifices himself knowing that there is a better, untarnished version waiting for her, and entrusting the younger him, or entrusting her to the younger him, is a very interesting look at how we look at life. And I mean, many times people might ask you, what would you tell the young you? What would you do for the young you? What would you say? What advice would you have? And it's interesting that, he could have made because technically he has more experience than the young, than the young Takeshi. But I think even him having that experience and knowing I've gone through some stuff that has broken me, as far as my sister, my life, things that I've had to do that you haven't yet had to do. And you have an opportunity to just love this woman. And that's what I prefer. That's what I would have for me, technically, because you are me, sort of weird thing. So in that moment, there was this weird sacrifice gifting of a second chance to the young him. Like, do it better than me. Do it more righter than I did. And I really dug that. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that was a great, like, just a great moment for them to have, like saying like, yo, follow my lead, have my back. And just being like, this is what I want for you. Me, you know, this is what I want for myself. A better opportunity, a second chance. Being free from these experiences, which is something that I really, really enjoyed. And just that in general, man, I thought was really dope. Overall, the experiences from this season, from the betrayal to the government stuff, I thought was cool. I thought how Danica tried to like pull the wool over the council's eyes was kind of cool. The way she rolled up on Colonel was like, well, I'm gonna sit here until y'all figure it out. I thought that was great. The one-on-one between old Takeshi and new Takeshi, I thought that was fun. There were some cool moments in here. And even the moment with Poe going in VR and finding out that Harlan had been dead and them trying to corner him and saying, you know what? You guys control this place, but I can tear it down. I thought that was wonderful too. So there's a lot of cool moments in this show. Seeing some past moments with him and the triads, it was just cool. You know what I'm saying? I enjoyed this show. This is a show that for me started off extremely slow in season 1, that grew on me, and that I enjoy this world and the way this world works. I like the idea of being able to have a different lead every season. I think it's cool. And then you have your anchor of, you know, Takeshi Prime or Will Yoon Lee. You have that anchor. And I think it's cool, man. I think the way they set this up is interesting. So any season, like say next season, you can have Will do the heavy lifting and being the main star. And then season after that, you can have someone completely different. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting seeing how they played this and seeing if Kel will ever be able to bring humanity back to, I guess, its normal lifespan. So question for you before we jump on to Resleeved. Question for you, what do you want for season 3? The only thing I'll say I want for season 3, I think the show is pretty well written, pretty well directed and handled. There's some stuff where I'm like, oh, that person did something stupid. But for the most part, I'm entertained and I'm engaged. I would like to see a planet or city or town that is perfect. I would like to see that. All too many times in kind of our futuristic sci-fi, there's always this kind of like tech wasteland. Kind of like you're going through there. It's like it looks like Blade Runner. Like everybody looks like they're trying to be like Blade Runner light. And I would love to see a place that looks perfect on the surface, but has kind of like this Stepfordian vibe going on in the background. I'd like to see that. Like they go to a planet or go to this state or city or whatever where nobody wants for anything. Everything seems to be perfect, but there's something off. I would like to see that because I think this is a kind of a bell that we ring a lot in our futuristic, kind of post-apocalyptic sort of sci-fi where everything is Blade Runner-ish. And not to say that I don't like that, but this is 2 seasons with this now. Let's switch it up. Yeah, I'd like to see, let's switch it up or see how this plays in a very rural setting. How would that affect them? How would they go through that? You know what I'm saying? I'd like to see that. So guys, holla at me. I'm gonna holla at you down in them comments. Let's talk about season 2 of Altered Carbon, man. I enjoyed it, for real. Lotus Scholar says, I hear you, Utopia, but surface level. Yeah, something like, it seems like everything's perfect, but it's like something keeps nagging at you, like something something's off here. Like people are smiling too hard, or this is too perfect, or like this is, everything's too prim and proper. Like, what's going on? So I would like to see something like that, to where society isn't just always Blade Runner or Johnny Mnemonic, or or I don't know, hackers. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. Now, on the flip side of Altered Carbon Season 2, I wanted to get into the animated film Altered Carbon Resleeved, which I tweeted out to the Altered Carbon account to ask them whether this is tied to the show or not, because there is a specific part of this show, of this movie, that seems in a way, for me, seems to break continuity for the main show. In Resleeved, you guys already know, Ray and Tack going to a mission together. So I'll leave that right there for now. We'll circle back around to that. I'm going to review the actual anime itself. The art is something that I'm on the fence about. I've seen this cel-shaded stuff, this cel-shaded kind of 3D stuff many times. And every time I look at it, it's not that it looks bad, but it reminds me so much of a video game, I think, that it's hard for me to get into movie mode with it. Every time I see stuff done like this, it makes me think of like Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 5, instead of thinking about a movie, instead of being, enveloped in this story, drawn into this film. I'm just like, oh, this is a video game. And I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I'm saying? It just seems very video gamey, if that helps, and not in a good way. Now, with that said, since it is video gamey, when fight scenes happen, it's fantastic. Like, when the fight scenes go down, they have like these ninjas and these samurais, dope masks, dope swords, dope uniforms. The character design is sick. So when those fight scenes go on, it's awesome. But in the quiet moments of characters talking to each other, characters relating to each other, moments when there should be facial expressions towards one another, it falls flat for me. And it falls real flat, to the point where it's hard to watch for me. I won't say unwatchable, because it's not that it's whack. It just looks like this isn't its place. You know what I'm saying? The way the animated film is edited is sloppy. They just fade out a lot of scenes. They just fade out and go to the next scene. Like, they don't try interesting transitions, and there's like 3 back-to-back scenes in this joint where they just fade out. They're just like, all right, well, fade out, next scene. And I'm like, whoa, what about an interesting transition or a jump cut or like an L cut or something like that? Do something where there's an interesting transition to the next scene. Man, it comes off like they were trying to make this fast to capitalize off of the very end of season 2 of Altered Carbon, or at least have it close to that season, that release of season 2. The story, though, is where I hang my hat of complaints. In Altered Carbon, if this is supposed to be connected, and that's why I asked them. They never replied to my tweet, so I don't know. And I might have dropped a big spoiler, but I'm like, this is on Netflix. We can all watch it right now. It's not the same. It's not the same as like this is in the theater. But in season 1 of Altered Carbon, even in season 2, the idea is that Takeshi Kovacs dies and his sleeve gets put on ice. And there's, I believe, 300 years until the beginning of season 1. In that 300 years, Ray has not seen Tak. Tak has not seen Ray. Ray has been building her power and all that stuff and pulled her strings to get Takeshi, out for the investigation needed for season 1. That's what we believe. This is set, I believe, I can't remember. I want to say they said a couple of years after the explosion with Kel that they spin up Takeshi's stack in a sleeve, and he goes on a mission with Ray. Now, he doesn't know that Ray is Ray, but Ray knows that Tak is Tak. If that's the case, one, why are we acting like he had been on ice for all this time when technically he wasn't, because he went on this mission and at the end of Resleeved, he stays on for another mission. And why is Ray acting like she hasn't seen him in God knows how long? Because she saw him in Resleeved. For me, there's unless I have my times wrong. Now, let me know in the comments. I might have my times wrong. I might not be remembering this correctly. Whatever. But I feel like they broke continuity and didn't care because it was animated. And that's, I don't know. As someone who's trying to get invested with this, I'm like, yo, why would you do this? Just make a story of some other person that did some cool stuff. It doesn't have to be Takeshi. You know what I'm saying? It could be someone else and it could still be a cool story. So that kind of bothered me. And I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about Altered Carbon Resleeved? If I was to rate Altered Carbon Resleeved against other animated films and, based on live action properties, this would be very middle of the road for me. This is the kind of like the basic protect the girl storyline. There's a girl, she's in deep with the gang, protect her. Gang boss wants all the power of the gang, 1 and 2 and 3 and repeat. The deaths didn't seem visceral or real, even though they were visually, you were like, whoa, that was an interesting kill, but it never hit you. And I think it's because of the art style looking so video gamey. It never really drives home for me. Fight scenes are definitely worth a watch. They look cool, but it's just kind of empty calorie carnage. Yeah. I think that's what I call it. So on that one, I don't know, man. I'm not mad at Resleeved. I think it was rushed, and I don't think we particularly needed it. And if we got it, since we do have it, I'd prefer a story that doesn't at least seem like it breaks continuity. But I could be wrong. Maybe I missed a line, because Altered Carbon will drop lines and you'll be like, hold up, what? How does that relate to this? So maybe I forgot something, but from my memory, Ray and Takeshi were not supposed to seen each other from the explosion with Kel up until season 1 where they meet each other. After, is it Montoya? What was that girl's name? The girl that he was, Ortega. Ortega, the girl that he was with, the chick that was investigating him while he was investigating the murder, sort of. So yeah, and he ended up hollering at her and stuff and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's weird because it's like you almost retconned your main property for an animated film that isn't even that good. So yeah. As far as should you see Resleeved, nah, you don't need to. If you're chilling and just, if you're folding clothes or something, or, doing some work around the house where you can just have it on the background and catch a couple lines here and there, yeah. The Japanese audio is good. The English audio is good. But it doesn't, for me, add anything. And I'm not eager for anything new. I am eager for a season 3, but Resleeved, I'd say they need to change the art style and come better with how they actually direct the film. And give us a better story, man. This basic storyline, not when you have so many intricate pieces in your season, than have something just so basic in your film. I'd rather just not have it. But yeah, with that said, guys, holla at me. I'm gonna holla at you. Down in them comments, let's talk Altered Carbon Season 2. Let's talk Resleeved. Whether you dug it, did not dig it, whatever, you know what I'm saying? What's your rank? Where you put it at? Are you feeling it? Is Season 2 better than Season 1? Season 1 better than Season 2? What do you want to see in Season 3? Before I get out of here, I want to give a big shout out to Lo, the Scholar, for coming through. Big shout out to, of course, Thought Crimes, Double Toasted, For All Nerds, Black Tribbles, Blurdish, Arcatron doing his thing, The Blurred Girl. Also, much love to folks like Enrico Carrion with Phenomic, Chuck Collins with Bounce webcomic. Both of those comics, Phenomic and Bounce, are both free for y'all to check out online. So many awesome things going on. Don't forget Project Wildfire by Quinn McGowan and Hannibal Taboo. Tons of stuff out there for y'all to check. So, of course, until next time, where I'll probably be talking about Madam C.J. Walker or doing some gaming, because there's still some gaming news dropping, even though things are slowing down. Yeah, Lotus Scholar says CG anime be failing. Yeah, it's tough. There's some cool stuff out there like Appleseed. Appleseed was cool. I remember it being cool. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember it being cool. But for the most part, it's a delicate balance because I think people go CG in the anime space. I feel they go CG because they want to cut corners on storytelling and basic direction. And I think that's where they fail. But guys, until next time, of course, holla at me. I'm gonna holla at you down in the comments. NERDSoul, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Thanks you for watching. Thank you for your support and chilling and kicking it. Until next time, from us to you, peace. Peace. Lotus Scholar, a peace. Thought Crown, peace. Arcatron, peace. SP, peace. Yeah, peace. Much love. I'll see y'all later.